You're listening to registered dietitian and exercise physiologist Samantha Heller on Doctor Radio, SiriusXM 81.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Samantha Heller's Health and Nutrition Show right here on Doctor Radio, SiriusXM Channel 81. We are in the heart of the NYU Langone Medical Center. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope so far your week has been fantastic and you've done something amazingly helpful for yourself this week. And pat yourself on the back for yourself if you have. Right now, we're going to be talking about some emerging research, new research suggesting that probiotics, those cultures that we talk about in yogurt, may have even more effects on your body than just making your gut sort of healthy or, helping you get through the day. We're going to be talking with an expert in the field. Dr. Mitchell Jones is on the phone with me. He is the Chief Scientific Officer and co-founder of Micropharma, and the chief author of several studies that are looking at how probiotics may affect your heart health. Dr. Jones, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Dr. Heller.
How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I know I met you a few months back, and now here we are finally chatting on the phone. Let's talk a little bit about, if we can just share with our listeners, people hear about probiotics and they've sort of heard of acidophilus, but I don't think people really fully know what they are.
Sure. Well, a probiotic bacteria or a probiotic is much like the product that we're launching, Cardioviva, is a good bacteria, which when administered in sufficient quantities provides a health benefit to the host or the human host. Often those benefits have been immune or gastrointestinal. Obviously, our product, Cardioviva, in lowering LDL cholesterol, improves metabolic function as well.
But probiotics in general are sort of the bacteria that live in your gut. They're happy little beings, and they help us stay healthy. They're a big part, 70 to 80% of our immune system. There's 100 million gazillion of them in there. What is it they do? How do they keep us healthy?
Sure. I think you're, in large part referring to some emerging science around something called the microbiome. So the microbiome refers to the microorganisms that live on and around our bodies. And the gut microbiome is the totality of gut microorganisms. So that is the bacteria, the viruses, et cetera, that live in our gut, their genetic information, and then also their functions. And so science is currently evaluating sort of, what lives on our skin, or in the case of the gut, in our gut, as well as what functions they play. And they're finding out some very interesting information regarding their metabolic function. And
we have, how many millions of different kinds of bacteria in our gut? A lot.
So we harbor about 100 trillion, so that's 10 to the 14 microbial cells.
100 trillion little guys, and they're not even paying rent.
Exactly. And a quadrillion or 10 to 15 viruses.
Wow. And so there's good guys and bad guys all living in our gastrointestinal tract, which starts in our mouth and ends in our fanny. For those of you who, we always think of it just as our stomach, but it's the whole tract from top to bottom. And these bacteria, the healthy ones, help deactivate viruses, help keep. Can you talk just a little bit about how the microbiome and how the healthy bacteria, what they do with the wall of the gut and how that protects us from disease and illness? And we definitely, of course, will be talking about your research. But I want people to get a sense of why the microbiome is important.
For sure. Actually, the emerging and most recent research is showing us that there are definitely good bacteria. They can be termed probiotic bacteria, and of course there are bad bacteria, often called pathogenic, because they can cause disease. And I sort of see it as a teeter-totter. There are good ones and there are bad bacteria. And if there are too many bad bacteria or the wrong type of bad bacteria, they can overcome the good bacteria and potentially get into your bloodstream and cause disease, in the case of Salmonella, Campylobacter, Enterovasive E. coli, etc. And then there are also probiotic bacteria, or the good bacteria, that are commensal, meaning that they belong to your gut, and they line the gut and they help the gut produce an anatomical barrier against the bad bacteria. They also provide signals to your immune system, 80% of which is in your gastrointestinal tract, to help down-regulate your immune response. So your immune system will pick up both the presence of the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. In some cases, it'll want to fight off the bad bacteria, but the presence of the good bacteria in sufficient quantities will tell your immune system just to hold back and not raise such a large immune response that it creates an ulceration or sore, such as in the case of ulcerative colitis or Crohn's.
And actually, there's research done on probiotics and atopic dermatitis.
Yeah, there's some very good evidence that probiotics used early in life can reduce the incidence of atopic dermatitis in infants.
And for people who don't know what that is, that's a skin problem. So what we're saying is all of those trillions of bacteria in your gastrointestinal tract can affect all the different parts of your body, whether it's your skin or your mouth or your eyes, your research is looking even at cholesterol. And I think for some people that might be very surprising. So if you could sort of take us from how you first decided that this might be something to look into. What made you think that some of this healthy bacteria in our microbiome in our gut might affect our heart health?
Sure. Well, first of all, growing up, I have a twin brother. He's the CEO in our company, and he's an engineer, and I'm a trained physician as well as a PhD. And the two of us growing up had a single-parent father and who had high cholesterol and passed away after a second heart attack. And so obviously high cholesterol heart disease was something that was an interesting a topic of interest to me. We put ourselves through university, and after medical school, I started this company, Micropharma, with a number of co-founders, including my brother. When I had seen some research at the university regarding the use of probiotic bacteria, I saw that cholesterol was one of the factors that was possible to move with by delivering oral probiotics. And so I decided to set about selecting for a probiotic strain that specifically reduced cholesterol. And the way that the body naturally removes cholesterol is through bile. So the body takes cholesterol from the blood, converts it into bile, secretes it into your gastrointestinal tract for the purpose of absorbing fat and absorbing cholesterol. And in doing so, some of that bile is lost, and so that's the way the body removes of sterols, or in the case of cholesterol or bile through fecal excretion. So what we did was we selected a strain of bacteria that had high bile salt hydrolase activity. So basically it's an enzyme that makes it more likely for you to lose or to remove of cholesterol and bile through the feces. So what we found in our clinical studies, we've conducted 2 clinical studies, one in yogurt and one supplement study. And in our supplement study, it was a 9-week study, and we found that the strain lowered LDL cholesterol by 11.6%. And we also investigated its mechanism of action and found that it did so by largely by reducing the amount of cholesterol that was absorbed.
So it's kind of like that statin drug Zetia. It's not a statin, but the lower cholesterol-lowering drug Zetia that keeps your stomach from absorbing cholesterol when you eat it. Although I never completely understood why that worked if someone wasn't eating foods with cholesterol, but that's a whole other story. In what you're saying is that this particular strain of bacteria is helping your body get rid of extra cholesterol that's now in the form of bile, because it's kind of confusing for people who don't know, haven't studied anatomy or physiology, and basically you're excreting it.
Sure.
It's encouraging your body to do that.
Yes. So maybe you take sort of one step back. So about 80% of the body's cholesterol is synthesized, is made, produced in your liver, and 20% is taken in through diet. So the drug you mentioned, Zetia, which is ezetimibe, is an inhibitor of absorption, and it doesn't necessarily work or have to work by reducing the amount of cholesterol absorbed by your diet.
Oh, okay.
It can also work by reducing the amount of cholesterol secreted in bile. So there's about a very large fraction of cholesterol that is absorbed in your gut is actually absorbed after you secrete it in your bile. So just like ezetimibe, we have found similar levels of reduction of cholesterol absorption with Cardioviva.
Now, with Cardioviva, you said you selected the strains of the probiotics. Can you give us the name? People have heard of lactobacillus. They might have even heard of Saccharomyces boulardii. They certainly have probably heard of acidophilus. What is the name of your bacteria? And
Sure.
And you can tell me that. It doesn't mean we're going steady or anything.
Sure. The bacteria that we selected is a lactobacillus. It's a Lactobacillus reuteri. And the nomenclature or the name for where it's deposited in the world is NCIMB 30242. So it's not a very sexy name necessarily, so we call it Cardioviva. But Lactobacillus reuteri are found in yogurt products, and they can also be found in sourdough bread products. But that doesn't mean that by eating sourdough bread or yogurt products with reuteri in them, that you can get a cholesterol-lowering effect. Two Lactobacillus reuteri can be very different. They can have very different genes and have very different properties. And so we spent probably about 10 years selecting for and developing the formulation of Cardioviva. And this specific Lactobacillus reuteri has not only been selected for its ability to lower cholesterol, but also we grow it in a certain way and formulate it in a way that allows it to lower cholesterol. So if you're looking for the cholesterol-lowering properties in Cardioviva, really you have to look for products that contain the Lactobacillus reuteri NCIMB 30242 strain.
Well, they should just go to your website, right?
Yeah.
And your website's Cardioviva.
Yeah, exactly. So our website is mycardioviva.com, and the product should be available in the States at most Walgreens on June 1st. And you can also go to our website at mycardioviva.com and be the first to try Cardioviva there.
Okay, so that's good news. And does this also offer the gastrointestinal tract healthifying benefits that a lot of the other healthy bacteria does?
So just recently we've submitted two manuscripts. So we've submitted our clinical results on the ability of the strain actually to increase 25-hydroxyvitamin D, and that's been accepted for publication. So that's fairly exciting. When compared to placebo, we found in subjects that were hypercholesterolemic or had high cholesterol, it increased 25-hydroxyvitamin D by about 23%. And we also are publishing on the, like you said, gastrointestinal benefits. So just like a normal probiotic, Cardioviva, or L. reuteri 30242, has both immune health and gastrointestinal benefits. The gastrointestinal benefits that we saw in the study generally were the reduction of mild IBS symptoms.
So, and you're talking about irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
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 So, folks, by the way, just to remind you, if you've tuned in, I'm speaking with Dr. Mitchell Jones. He is the Chief Scientific Officer and the co-founder of Micropharma, and he has new research and stuff. And you just heard a lot of it here for the very first time. Some of it's not even published yet, showing that certain probiotics not only help lower your cholesterol, but can help keep your gut healthy and do all kinds of other benefits, like help raise your vitamin D level. And we all are generally, the experts are suggesting many of us have too low vitamin D levels, which can have all kinds of effects on our bodies. So we are taking your calls here on Dr. Radio at SiriusXM Channel 81. If you have any questions for Dr. Jones, our number is 1-877-NYU-DOCS. That's 1-877-698-3627. So, Dr. Jones, in terms of the cholesterol, and you may not have the answer since this is emerging research and it's new and you're just getting it out there. But if it lowers the cholesterol by about 11.6%, and I think the study was something like 6 weeks, is it a continually lowering it over time, or does it sort of reach a critical mass and by taking it regularly you keep it down at that level? How does that work, or don't we know yet?
Well, we've conducted two studies, one at 6 weeks and one at 9 weeks, and then we just currently finished a larger study at 12 weeks that finished last month. In our 6-week and 9-week study, we found there to be cholesterol or LDL reducing effect up until the 6-week point. Generally, what we've seen is a plateau in effect after 6 weeks.
Okay, but that's still pretty good. So if someone was borderline high cholesterol, meaning high bad cholesterol, maybe low good cholesterol as well, this might be a nice alternative to, of course, with their physicians, recommendations and all of that. Instead of going on a statin immediately, doing the lifestyle change, eating healthfully, and then adding some Cardioviva may be actually the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, the studies we've conducted generally are with patients who have borderline high or even higher levels of LDL cholesterol, and they're patients that aren't on statin therapy, who are engaging in dietary and lifestyle changes to try and improve their cholesterol. And then in addition to that, we've offered Cardioviva and found this 11.6%. So, that's sort of the positioning of the product, is that we're suggesting that people who, in addition to dietary and lifestyle changes, would like to include Cardioviva or a probiotic to help maintain healthy levels of cholesterol, or in our studies we've shown to lower cholesterol, they would take the probiotic product.
Now, for people who are taking other probiotics, there's Align, there's Florastor, there's VSL3. There's all kinds of other encapsulated, in capsules, probiotics people are taking. Does the Cardioviva interfere, or do they interfere with the action of the Cardioviva? Or can they all be taken and live happily ever after together in your gut?
So generally, products like VSL3 are mixtures of several different strains of bacteria. Align is a single strain of bacteria. Our strain of bacteria should provide a lot of the benefits seen with other types of probiotics like VSL3 or like Align. We're in the process of evaluating that with some of our partners. So we're looking currently at our strain for gastrointestinal health and IBS symptoms, and we're looking at the use of Cardioviva for other metabolic endpoints. And so while I don't see any problem with using Cardioviva in combination with another probiotic such as Align,
you may not have to.
You may not have to.
Okay.
And they are different probiotics. So I believe Align is a bifidobacteria, so much like Activia. So those kinds of probiotics are more for the distal part of the colon, and the kind of probiotic that we're selling, the Lactobacillus reuteri, is more preferential and enjoys the proximal part of your gastrointestinal tract.
And what that means is, for our listeners, is the Cardioviva bacteria likes the upper part of your GI tract, your small intestine, and some of the other probiotics like the lower part in your colon. So they have, just like everyone, we have different neighborhoods where we like to live, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we are taking your calls here on Dr. Radio. I'm speaking with Dr. Mitchell Jones. He's the Chief Scientific Officer and co-founder of Micropharma, and he's actually shared with us some breaking news on new research that isn't even out yet, which is pretty fun, right here on Dr. Radio, about probiotics and how it can affect your health. We have Barbara from Boston, Massachusetts. Hi, Barbara.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
My mom has had irritable bowel syndrome for many, many years, so my question is specific to that. Over the years, we have tried so many different types of probiotics. Some are very expensive. Some are not very expensive at all. We've tried everything. I'm not sure, and I know it takes a while for the effects to be seen, but specific to IBS, is there any strain of probiotics that we should be looking at? Even when we've gone to the specialists, they say, well, you need a probiotic, but they can't target which one, and there's more and more to choose from now.
And
so
Barbara, this is such a great question, because I've had our very own Ira Bright, our gastroenterologist, here at NYU Medical Center on the show, and I asked him a similar question, like, how do you know which ones to take for what? And his response was, and then, of course, Dr. Jones, I want to hear your response. His response was, we don't really know. The ones you're taking are fine. There's just so many out there. There's so much more research to be done. We like to just tell you to take the ones that are active in high numbers. And I've had gastroenterologists tell me that before. So it's a common confusion because it's actually a relatively complicated field. But Dr. Jones, Barbara's mother's been struggling with irritable bowel syndrome for years. Is there a type of probiotic she should be looking for? Because really the names are long and confusing for most people.
Yeah. So I give lectures at the university, and obviously my background, I'm a PhD in biomedical engineering, but I'm also, I studied clinical medicine, and generally in clinical medicine, you look for practice guidelines, and so the practice guidelines, the set of guidelines that help clinicians guide their patients, show that the best evidence exists for a line, so Bifidobacterium infantis for IBS. The American College of Gastroenterology says the evidence is good, but not sufficient for a strong or supporting general recommendation. And then there's a paper published in Clinical Gastroenterology and Hepatology in 2012 that gives a level of effectiveness. So it grades the probiotics as A, B, or C in terms of level of effectiveness, and it says that a line, a product by Procter & Gamble, Bifidobacterium infantis, has a level of effectiveness at B, and there's evidence for a BioGaia strain at A, and a level of evidence for Activia by Denon at C. What's interesting is we're very interested in evaluating Cardioviva, our strain, for irritable bowel syndrome, and the reason is because a lot of the immune system is affected by bile metabolism, and so some of the metabolites of bile that are bile is basically secreted into the gastrointestinal tract and then acted on by bacteria, and some of those metabolites are very potent inhibitors of immune responses.
That's great. Does that answer your question, Barbara? It's pretty specific, right?
Of course, well, it does, to understand why a line is so much more expensive than the others. So I guess we'll have to stick with it.
I know. A lot of them are expensive, I know, and then that can be very frustrating. But, also the healthy diet and the exercise and the maintaining good hydration is all, of course, helpful for IBS as well. Right?
Okay, well, thank you so much for helping.
Sure.
That helps a lot. At least it will help next time I go to the pharmacy.
All right, Barbara, thanks for calling. Thanks for listening to us here at Dr. Radio. We really appreciate that. Dr. Jones, we got a call, an email from Ann, and she says, does your probiotic lower apolipoprotein B/LDL-P?
Yes. So in both our studies evaluating the yogurt formulation and in our studies evaluating the supplement formulation, we found significant reductions in apolipoprotein B.
So that's good.
Yes.
That's good, because there's all kinds of, I have to just share with our listeners, the cholesterol metabolism in the body is really, really complicated. And it takes someone like Dr. Jones, who has 45,000 degrees, in biochemistry and medicine and all this stuff to really understand it. But the bottom line is Cardioviva does seem to help along those lines, which also then, reduces inflammation in your arteries, which will help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. So we really like that train there.
And maybe also ApoB100. So it's a great question. ApoB100 is considered the very bad cholesterol. So it's a cholesterol particle that's very small. And so in our second study, just to give your listener or the email question, sort of more specific answer, there was a reduction of 8.41%, highly significant, in people taking Cardioviva over placebo control in ApoB100, so the very bad or the smaller cholesterol.
So I like that. This is fun. We have Scott from Los Angeles. Hi, Scott.
Yes, good morning. My question is regarding, for example, myself taking Crestor, a statin, that would Cardioviva produce additional benefits with the combination?
Oh, great question. Dr. Jones?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in our current studies, we've been evaluating the strain in statin-naive patients, so patients that have not been taking statin drugs. There's a number of articles as a research team that we look at. We look at trying to answer that question, and there's a number of articles indicating that responders to statins are generally those that have metabolites in their blood or molecules in their blood that indicate they have bile salt hydrolase active strains of bacteria in their gut. So while we have reason to believe that by giving Cardioviva, one might be more likely to respond to a statin, we haven't conducted the clinical research to show that yet.
But can we say that if Scott decided to take Cardioviva, go to Walgreens and pick it up in June along with his statin, that would be a safe thing to do?
Yeah, it should be a safe thing to do. I mean, obviously, Scott should discuss with his physician, and it's really a discussion that has to go on between a primary care physician or a cardiologist and a patient as to whether or not they should take vitamins or supplements.
Absolutely. Scott, does that answer your question?
Again, to summarize, if you could, so you're saying that it's not proven that while taking statins that adding a Cardioviva product, for example, would gain additional benefit. Would that be true?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we haven't conducted the study.
Understand. Thank you very much.
All right, Scott, thanks for calling. Thanks for listening to us here on Dr. Radio. We have Carl from California. Hi, Carl.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your question?
I know this is a hard question, but it's an easy question. Is there a general way of telling me who should be on probiotics and who should not? And the second question is, if a person is eating a balanced diet all the way around, would they ever need to be on a probiotic? Ever is a bad term, but yeah,
right.
Those are my questions.
Right, and they're great questions, and I think a lot of people have those questions. Dr. Jones?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and maybe I'll give you the background information to help you make your own decision. But I think the general evidence right now and consensus in people that are evaluating the microbiome, so looking at the microbiome, how it, what kinds of bacteria are there, how the microbiome changes over time, how the microbiome changes with disease. The general consensus is that since we've been using antibiotics and since we've been becoming sort of more and more conscious about bacteria, we've been losing the diversity, so the sort of breadth or the amount of different types of bacteria and organisms that live in our microbiome. And over a long period of time, several generations, this can lead to a reduction in the diversity of your microbiome, so that the microbiome that you would normally get transmitted from your mother, or the microbiome that you would get transmitted from your the environment, one is called vertical transmission and the other is called horizontal transmission, will reduce over a large period of time. And so the idea by these researchers and generally in the world of probiotics is that by adding good bacteria, you're not necessarily increasing or providing a large number of organisms that you may be missing if you've taken antibiotics, or if your microbiome just isn't necessarily that diverse, but at least you're providing a beneficial organism, so that the potentially harmful organisms aren't outnumbering the beneficial commensal organisms. So that's one point. And the other point is that I think that food products that contain probiotics or fermented food products are generally seen as healthy, and fermentation is a way that humans over a long period of time have used to benefit themselves and to preserve food products.
So, Carl, generally, and from the research that I've been reading, the experts seem to think probiotics in general are a pretty good thing for us to be doing. You don't have to do it, but since a lot of us have been on antibiotics on and off, it may not be a bad idea. And you're asking what to look for?
Well, I mentioned what to look for. The other one, I think you've answered both my questions right there.
Okay.
So that's fine. I appreciate it.
All right, Carl, thank you for calling. Thanks for listening to us here at Dr. Radio. This has been a really fun segment, Dr. Mitchell Jones. He's the chief scientific officer and co-founder of Micropharma. Their new probiotics coming out. You'll find it in Walgreens in June, called Cardioviva. Of course, as Dr. Jones suggested, speak with your physician or cardiologist about taking it. But it does sound like your research is really exciting and really cutting edge, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, we're very excited about Cardioviva, and again, our business people had mentioned that it would also be available at Walgreens.com and drugstore.com mid-May. So if you wanted to get it a couple of weeks before it's in all the Walgreens stores across the country in June. You can get it at Walgreens.com and drugstore.com in mid-May.
Okay, great. That's great to know. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was nice to speak with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heller.
Have a fantastic weekend, folks. I have to take a short break. When we come back, we will be talking about nutrition and gut health with registered dietitian Ashley Koff. So don't go away. We'll be right back after this short break on Dr. Radio.